we're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus, and joining me today is our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Cristel.
Yes, hello, Alma. I'm Cristel Mapa from EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, President Duterte has joined other world leaders in congratulating U.S. President-elect Joe Biden on his victory in the 2020 U.S. presidential elections, according to Malacanang.
Filipinos Art and Yoli Arcila in Delaware, U.S. give their views after the win by Joe Biden in the U.S. presidential election.
And Thai police fired water cannon on democracy protesters who were trying to march to the Royal Palace to deliver letters demanding reform to the unassailable monarchy.
Vote counting continued late into the night in Myanmar after an election Sunday that is expected to return to power the government of Aung San Suu Kyi, who remains a hero at home in spite of a reputation abroad shattered by the Rohingya crisis.
First to the U.S. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden took the first steps towards moving into the White House in 73 days as Donald Trump again refused to admit defeat and tried to sow doubt about the election results. With congratulations pouring in from world leaders and supporters nursing hangovers after a night of celebrations, Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris launched a transition website, buildbackbetter.com, and a Twitter feed at Transition46. Meanwhile, President Trump played golf at his course near Washington, the same place where he was Saturday when the U.S. television networks delivered the news that Joe Biden had secured enough electoral college votes for victory. Now, Mr. Trump said, "Since when does the lamestream media call who our next president will be?" He complained in a tweet on Sunday. President Trump plans to file a string of lawsuits in the coming week, according to his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who said he had a lot of evidence of fraud. But former President George W. Bush said the outcome is clear and added that he had called President-elect Biden and Harris to extend his congratulations. Now, Bush said in a statement that the American people can have confidence that this election was fundamentally fair. He said we must come together for the sake of our families and neighbors and for our nation and its future. Mr. Biden's transition website lists 4 priorities: COVID-19, economic recovery, racial equity, and climate change.
President leaders in congratulating U.S. President-elect Joe Biden on his victory in the 2020 U.S. presidential elections, Malacanang said Sunday. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this remark after Biden's victory in Pennsylvania put him over the threshold of 270 electoral college votes he needed to win the presidency. And I quote, "On behalf of the Filipino nation, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte wishes to extend his warm congratulations to former Vice President Joseph Joe Biden on his election as the new President of the United States of America," he said in a statement. He said Duterte was looking forward to working with the 46th President of the United States. Secretary Roque expressed confidence that long-standing bilateral relations between the Philippines and U.S. would continue under Biden's term. And I quote, "The Philippines and the United States have long-standing bilateral relations, and we are committed to further enhancing the relations with the United States under the Biden administration. Congratulations, and we wish him all the best," he said. On Wednesday, Roque said he expects no major changes in bilateral relations between the Philippines and the U.S., regardless of who wins the race for the White House.
Meanwhile, Filipinos Art and Yoli Arcilla in Delaware, U.S. gave their views after the win by Mr. Joe Biden in the U.S. presidential elections. Let's take a look.
Ninyo sa pagkapanalo ni Biden?
Ecstatic. We could finally breathe na, the thing is over. Yung challenges, tsaka yung chaos, yung 4 years. So, actually, I voted hindi lang para sa akin, kundi para sa grandkids and then the future, generation.
What are your concerns? Bakit yung binoto si Biden?
We need some peace and dignity and decency and humility in this new generation. So,
Ano po yung mga issues na nakita nyo na sa palagay nyo makakatulong si Biden?
I think better management ng Biden. That's what I'm looking forward. I think for the last several months, it was not properly managed, and I'm hoping Biden and his team can do it better. I think they can do it better. The way plans nila and the way they evaluate it and stuff like that. To me, that's the most important thing, is the proper management of the virus. If this virus or this pandemic, it really controls everything. It controls especially economy and unemployment. That's pinaka-importante sa akin. There are some other issues, racism and nationalism issues. But to me, it's the virus management.
Is your major concern?
Yes, it's my major concern.
Ako yung concern ko rin yung mga sa immigration, children that were separated from their parents. Now I think Biden's really trying hard to find and put them all together with families, the mga children's kawawa yung the parents. I'm pretty sure they're suffering from being separated from their kids. They don't even know where they are and they don't even know what's going on.
When it comes to concern, there are about 70 million people who voted for Trump, and 74 million to Biden. So in other words, America is really divided. That is my concern. I may be seeing something that they don't see, and the same way, they may be seeing things that hindi ko nakikita. So America is very divided. That is my actually probably that would be my number one concern. Or hand in hand with the virus.
Meanwhile, our EBC correspondent Elle Aguilar and her crew were able to get some reactions from voters sharing their hopes and expectations from the new U.S. administration. Elle?
After days of exhausting consequential presidential election, Democrat Joe Biden is declared the 46th President of the United States. Biden took the stage Saturday night in his hometown, Wilmington, Delaware, and vowed to unify the country. Biden, who secured more than 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency, also said that he sought the office to restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone of the nation, to make America respected around the world again. Reports say the president-elect hinted that he would build his administration quickly, focusing on the pandemic. Some analysts say there is no indication whether President Donald Trump will cooperate. Trump refuses to concede, threatening to pursue legal action on ballot counting. Meantime, Biden supporters have expressed their hope and expectations to the new president of the United States. Let's take a listen.
My expectations are we're going to get COVID under control. We're not going to have 100,000 cases of COVID a day like we are now. We're going to get the economy going. We're going to take care of people, and we're going to build the best country ever in history.
I'm just hoping that the country becomes unified again and we can all come back together as one people and one country. Exactly.
I would like for things to be addressed with COVID, of course. We've lost way too many people, so COVID needs to be addressed. You know, unity needs to be addressed. Racism needs to be addressed. You know, equality needs to be addressed. Inclusion for women needs to be addressed. Our world is definitely headed in the right direction with Biden in.
I would expect that Biden will address this pandemic. I find it appalling that the numbers, here we are in November, and the numbers are up 100,000, 110,000, 120,000, like it's climbing. And I'm like, I was looking at the per capita. We're one of the highest per capita countries in the world. And we are one of the richest countries in the world. Like, it shouldn't be that way. So my first thought is control the pandemic. The second part is, all right, once we get that under control, maybe come up with a federal policy to address, like everybody wear masks, everybody stay at home, whatever it is. Then we work on the economy. I know that was the number one concern for my fellow citizens, and so I think it should be addressed. My other thought is, like, doesn't do you much good if you're dead from COVID if the economy's good. So my first thought is make COVID, take care of COVID, then we take care of the economy.
My real hopes are that I can get some rest. To tell you the truth, I haven't slept well at all, and every day it seems like I worry about what's going to happen next. What did he say this time? What did he say that time? And I feel like I can have some peace. It may not come for a little bit, but my hopes are that, again, I think the key thing is that we reach out to our allies again. We've lost a lot of people around the world, and I hope that we can work as a country and a nation with others as well as within our own United States.
My expectations are that it will not be easy. That the first thing we need to do is get a grip on this COVID so I don't have to talk through a mask. I work in education, and my hope for the future for the children of this country is that we will again be healed and move forward in the direction that we came at the end of 2016.
From Wilmington, Delaware, El Aguilar, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
And we have more reactions coming from Los Angeles. Eva Basalyahe was able to take these interviews. Take a look.
I am genuinely so excited that Joe Biden has won the presidency, because not only does he have executive orders ready and waiting for January 21st when he is inaugurated, but he also has plans to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord and also the World Health Organization. And after this last year of dealing with COVID, I think that we definitely deserve a president who cares about both his supporters and his non-supporters, and someone who cares about reuniting the American people.
Although I believe that Joe and Kamala are not the most perfect candidates for the presidency and vice presidency, Donald Trump's rhetoric has truly empowered and emboldened sentiments of anti-immigration, anti-feminist, anti-POC, and anti-science, amongst other problematic views that have truly been detrimental to populations of people throughout the world. Moving forward, I hope that people recognize that voting is not the only way to mobilize and advocate for marginalized communities. I ask whoever's watching this that there's still a lot of work to be done. join our grassroots organizations, and to keep fighting.
Because of those programs that I really believe he's concerned about the health of the people, not only here in California, but how to do it throughout the whole world. For concerning the environment, yes, I believe that he will go because as of now, yeah, that the environmental program that will help my people, my children, not only the people again of California, the whole wide world. Again, about the racism. Fight for that. That there is no color, there is no what race, but should be divided, should be equally treated.
In every election season in the United States, residents in the territories of Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico address numerous recurring topics ranging from their national identity to being unable to vote for president. Irish Dale Radam from our EBC Micronesia Bureau has more.
I'm one who believes that the status quo is okay as far as our relationship with the United States and being a territory.
President is the symbol of democracy and a free nation. And people do not realize Guam is a part of that. So it only depicts the situation we're in. We're not able to vote for him. We might as well not be a part of him, right?
Under current law, American citizens who claim residency in one of 5 U.S. territories are not entitled to participate in the presidential elections. One of those territories in the West Pacific is the island of Guam. Given the recent 2020 elections and ongoing uncertainties, Americans in Guam like Lawrence Payne share his frustration for not being able to take part in the said election process.
Well, it's a conflict of many layers. One, taxation without representation is the loudest cry. So we pay taxes on Guam, yet we do not have a voice of empowerment that dictates the level of tax or the amount of tax. So therefore, that's one of the biggest hurts. We pay tax without proper representation.
Meanwhile, in American Samoa, the question of whether to remain as a territory or as an independent country comes and goes. Many of the residents here prefer things the way they are, while others focus more on immediate issues.
I just don't think independence is in the future for us. I don't think we have the resources that it takes to be independent, which is, with me, fine. I think the money that we get from the United States, as far as supplying, much of our economy, is deserving. I hear a lot of talk sometimes about American Samoa being a welfare state, and for me, that's farthest from the truth. I think it's just a matter of the relationship that the United States chose with us, and it makes them responsible, probably make things work towards a better future. I think immigration would be at the top of the list. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can address, but I think immigration is a big problem, particularly when it comes to our economy. And when I say that, I mean that there's a lot of money that's leaving our economy, leaving the island, because of the people we have here as far as immigration. I know it's a necessity, but if you look at the groups here, like for example, the Filipino community, if you ask them how much of their paycheck stays here and how much of their paycheck leaves the island, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a surprising number that's probably not going to benefit the people of American Samoa. And that goes for the Chinese, who's probably the worst offenders. I think I wouldn't be surprised if over 90% of their money leaves off island and isn't in the economy here locally. And then you have, our own brothers and sisters from the independent state of Samoa, where 80% of them, make up the factory workers at the canneries, and most of their money gets sent back. So I I think immigration needs to be looked at. I'm not saying to stop immigration. I'm just saying that we need some kind of control over immigration to try and stop the hemorrhaging of the money, that's leaving the islands and stuff.
Better management of the grants that we get for the advancement of our people. It's one thing to get money from the U.S. It's another to make sure that that money is being used properly for the advancement of our people. Another thing, a lot of that money needs to be more put in our education. We are losing our youth. We need more of our youth to go into colleges, to get more educated, to get more knowledge, so they can come back and run this country better.
At present, more than 3.5 million U.S. citizens reside in America's territories in the Caribbean or the Pacific. If ranked among the 50 U.S. states based on population, overseas Americans would be larger than 22 other states in the Union. Reporting from the island of Guam, I am Irish Silverdam, EBC News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Irish Dale. Sam Fullwood III, a fellow at the Center for Congressional and Presidential Studies at American University, said that Mr. Donald Trump has no standing to challenge the result of the U.S. presidential election in court after he lost to Democrat Joe Biden. He was also asked on whether U.S. President-elect Joe Biden can unite the nation. Let's listen in.
And in a democracy with all of those different fracture points, it becomes very, very difficult for an individual, particularly a president, over the course of one term, to be able to bind all of those different fractures. I hope that President-elect Biden is able to do that. I don't know how optimistic I am that it's going to be easy. He admits that it's not going to be easy. Later, we have Joe Biden picking an African-American woman and to make history on his own in the vice president slot. That is remarkable. That is probably the most remarkable thing about this election. It is a sign of how America can change. There are two ways of looking at this. One is that he is seeking to sow disinformation to make at least his supporters believe that he's fighting to win, which they like that fighting spirit, or to make his supporters believe that America is so corrupt that he could not have gotten a fair shake in this. The other thing that could be is that he lives in a fantasy world of his own making, and that he just has to find enough space in his mind to accept the reality. Think back. There is no basis on which he has standing to go to court. What he is going to allege in court documents, we'll have to wait and see what that is. I can't even fabricate what kind of an argument that would be credible that he could take to a court. So having said that, I can't imagine that anything that he would bring about would have any success in court.
U.S. President-elect Joe Biden is likely to be much tougher than Trump on issues like China's treatment of its Uyghur Muslim minority, says Evan Resnick, an expert in U.S. foreign policy and international relations at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore.
Northeast, I think that this president will probably pursue a policy that looks a lot like the one that was implemented when he was vice president to Barack Obama, something that looks a lot more like a whole of government reorientation towards the Asia Pacific, in a manner that will probably make the Chinese quite nervous. I think it's almost certain that Biden will be much tougher than Trump on issues like human rights, on China's treatment of its Uyghur, the Muslim minority, than Trump was. I don't think it would be hard to be tougher than Trump on the issue of Xinjiang. But I think that the Chinese government will be under a lot more pressure on human rights issues. The relationship is going to get increasingly competitive, irrespective of who's leading both countries. The question is whether the leadership at the top can exercise some control over historical events and can behave reasonably and pragmatically. I'm much more confident that a Biden administration would be able to do that than a Trump administration. So there is a lot of pro-American sentiment in Northeast and in Southeast Asia. So the U.S. has a lot of capital to draw on. Trump did everything he could to try and sort of undermine those very healthy relationships, which was counterproductive. But those relationships have withstood even 4 years of Donald Trump, I think. So I think the U.S. has a reservoir of goodwill. Saudi Arabia, almost all world leaders will be really excited to see the United States back in the game, being back as a normal, liberal, leading great power that actually treats its friends well and its enemies with suspicion, with skepticism, rather than vice versa.
All right,
ASEAN
ASEAN in Focus. Go ahead. We'll be right back.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Vital volume 450. FI on to 100%. Traffic ban. Leveling or sanctioning.
Thailand and Myanmar to strengthen the relations following a phone call between its leaders. Faye Barder reports from Bangkok. Hi, Faye.
Good afternoon, Christelle, and good afternoon to all our viewers. A telephone meeting had been made between the Prime Minister of Thailand, Prayut Chan-o-cha, and the State Councillor of the Republic of the Union of Myanmar to further strengthen the relations of two countries. The Councillor of Myanmar had expressed many thanks as Thailand gives support to all Myanmar migrant workers and to fight the COVID-19. It has also discussed the COVID-19 situation in Myanmar and about border areas. Thailand is prepared to share the experiences and give support as needed by Myanmar. They are both willing to cooperate in post-COVID economic rehabilitation. Back to you, Christelle.
Thanks, Faye, for your updates. Stay safe and stay healthy always.
Likewise, this is Faye Barte reporting live from Bangkok Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Okay, Thai police on Sunday fired water cannon on pro-democracy protesters who were trying to march to the Royal Palace to deliver letters demanding reform to the unassailable monarchy. Take a look. Student-led rallies have rocked the kingdom since July, with protesters calling for the removal of Premier Prayut Chan-o-cha, a former army chief who came into power through a 2014 coup and a rewrite to the military scripted constitution. The boldest and the leaderless movement have also demanded reforms to the monarchy, a once taboo issue, sending shockwaves through Thailand's arch-royalist establishment. On Sunday, nearly 7,000 protesters, a police estimate, attempted to march from Bangkok's historic democracy monument to the Grand Palace to deliver letters to King Maha Vajiralongkorn, with security forces calling for them to stop. As the marchers got closer, police briefly fired water cannon at them. The protesters reacted angrily, shouting, "Why did you use the water cannons against us?" Authorities had warned earlier in the day that protesters were banned from reaching a 150-meter radius around the palace, and some 9,000 officials were deployed. Police defended their brief use of water cannon late Sunday night, saying it was just a warning. Sunday's confrontation was the second time police have deployed water cannon against protesters. Last month, a peaceful rally in downtown Bangkok saw protesters blasted with chemical-laced liquid as police bore down, images that shocked many in Thailand. Since then, demonstrators have appeared prepared for any retaliation from authorities, bringing along umbrellas, goggles, and even hard hats. The movement has also borrowed tactics from Hong Kong's pro-democracy protesters, who shared tips on Twitter using trending hashtags on how to react to police crackdowns. Meanwhile, vote counting continued late into the night in Myanmar after an election Sunday that is expected to return to power the government of Aung San Suu Kyi, who remains a hero at home in spite of a reputation abroad shattered by the Rohingya crisis. Several hundred ardent supporters ignored coronavirus warnings and gathered in a premature celebration, dancing, swinging, and even waving flags outside the Yangon headquarters of Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy. Take a look.
လုံလောက်မှုရှိပါတယ်။ရင်းနှက်ပါတယ်လုံလောက်မှုရှိ။ဆက်ဝေးပြီးတော့ကျမတို့ဒီမက်တွေဒီအကာအကွယ်တွေကိုပေးနေတာလေ။ဒီမှာပေးရတာလေလုံလုံကျုံကြည့်ပါတယ်။
ကိုဗစ်တဲ့ဆိုရင်ရှိတော့ရှိတာပါခင်ဗျာနော်ဒီမှာတော့ဒီမဲရုံကတော့ဒီဟန်ဂျယ်တွေဘာတွေမက်ဆေ့ပိုင်းနဲ့စနစ်ကြလုပ်တဲ့အတွက်တော့ swing ကိုနေပါတာပဲ။လက်ရှိဒီပါတီကဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့အုပ်ချုပ်စေခြင်းနဲ့ကြောင်းလဲမှုတစ်ခုတော့ရနိုင်မယ်လို့ထင်ပါတယ်။
ကိုဗစ်ကာလမှာမဲပေးရတာကနည်းနည်းတော့စိုးရိမ်မှုတော့ရှိတာပေါ့နော်ကိုဗစ်တရားဖြစ်နေကြတာဆိုတော့အခုကနည်းနည်းစိုးရိမ်မှုရှိပြီးမှလည်းဒါကနိုင်ငံသားတွေပေးရမဲပေးရမယ်တာဝန်ဆိုတော့စိုးရိမ်တဲ့ကြားကနေပြီးတော့ကို safe ဖြစ်အောင်လုံခြုံအောင်လုပ်ပြီးတော့လာပေးရတာပေါ့နော်
Overall results, however, will not be clear for another few days. The election is just the second since the Southeast Asian nation emerged from nearly half a century of junta rule in 2011. 5 years ago, the NLD won a landslide victory but was forced by the Constitution into an uneasy power-sharing agreement with the still mighty military. This time, the civilian leader, in a bid to maintain an absolute majority, implored citizens to overcome their coronavirus fears to turn out and cast their ballots. Restrictions across many other ethnic minority areas, ostensibly for security concerns, mean nearly 2 million voters are disenfranchised from an electorate of 37 million. In Rakhine State, some people posted protests can't vote selfies on Facebook with their little fingers colored white, mimicking the purple ink to mark those who have cast their ballots.
Yangon-based analyst Richard Horsey expects that civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi will achieve victory during Myanmar's election. The 75-year-old National League for Democracy is widely expected to be returned to power in the November 8 polls, only the second election since the Southeast Asian nation emerged from outright military rule.
All right, we'll be back with that news right after this break.
The search for the best continues. Tagi sa Nagaling Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. If you are 21 to 59 years old and have what it takes to be the next Tagi sa Nagaling Grand Winner as a solo performer, duet, trio, band, or grouped act, submit your audition entries now. Just follow these guidelines. To submit audition entries for the singing category, contact Nikki at 0977-651-9504. This is your chance to be Tagisan ng Galing's grand winner and win 2 million pesos. For more details and updates, visit and like the Tagisan ng Galing Facebook page. What are you waiting for? Join now!
Hello there. Imagine Demi got the virus and she infected 2 more. And those 2 infected a lot more of people. And it goes on and on until it became an epidemic. But what if Demi stayed at home? Then those 2 wouldn't have contracted the virus. Then those people would have not been infected. This is not just your battle, it's everyone's, and you can be a huge help. Follow social distancing, or better yet, stay at home.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Yangon-based analyst Richard Horsey expects that civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi will achieve victory during Myanmar's election. The 75-year-old's National League for Democracy is widely expected to be returned to power in the November 8 polls, only the second election since the Southeast Asian nation emerged from outright military rule.
These are really significant elections for Myanmar because these are only the second elections that will have been held under a democratic government. And so, this second round to consolidate electoral democracy in Myanmar, that's really important. I think all the indications are that the NLD is going to do extremely well again, especially in the center of the country where the majority Burman Buddhist population live. They are still very strongly supportive of Aung San Suu Kyi. They believe that she is the only person who can lead them. And so there will be another landslide. I think there is a huge risk of election violence in Myanmar because there's a lot of guns, there's a lot of armed groups, there's a lot of division, and that doesn't add up to a very encouraging picture for electoral violence so far. But I worry mainly about the post-election environment. When the results come out and certain ethnic communities feel elections, democracy are failing us, that's a very dangerous conclusion to draw in a country like Myanmar. And I worry particularly about Rakhine State. I think the West is going to see these elections through one lens, and that is the disenfranchisement of the Rohingya. That will be the story in the West about these elections, and that's a very different story than the one in Myanmar, which for supporters of Aung San Suu Kyi will be the triumphal reaffirmation of her destiny to lead the country, the triumph of democracy over military rule. That will be the story inside the country.
It's critical that there be a level playing field for all political parties. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that. We're seeing real problems with disenfranchisement of certain groups of people, canceled voting in wide swaths of the country, and an election commission that is quite clearly biased towards the ruling National League for Democracy Party, who have 1.1 million Rohingya who fled the country, fleeing crimes against humanity and acts of genocide that were perpetrated against them by the Myanmar military in 2016 and 2017. And you have over 600,000 Rohingya who are still in the country, but who have been stripped of their citizenship and the right to vote. This is outrageous and unacceptable.
Two people were killed when a pair of helicopters from the same Malaysian pilot school collided during a training flight, according to authorities on Sunday. Amateur video that has gone viral on the internet showed one helicopter falling into a wooded part of Kuala Lumpur, while the other managed to land safely in a school field. The Transport Ministry said both helicopters had taken off Subang Airport for a regular training session. Tragically, 2 crew members had perished in the crash. Transport Minister Wee Ka-shong said in a statement. He said an investigation had been launched. Helicopter flying as a hobby is gaining popularity among affluent Malaysians.
In Philippines now, tropical depression Tonyo slightly accelerated and is now over the coastal waters of Baluan, Occidental Mindoro. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, said on Sunday. In its 2 p.m. weather bulletin, PAGASA reported that Tonyo will move westward towards the western boundary of the Philippine Area of Responsibility and may exit PAR Monday morning. Here's the latest from the PAGASA Weather Forecasting Center.
Magandang araw. Narito nilalaman ng latest severe weather bulletin natin hinggil nga sa tropical depression na si Ulysses. So sa ngayon ay makikita natin sa ating satellite animation dito sa screen na yung kaulapan nga na dala ng bagyong si Ulysses ay malayo pa sa kalupaan ng ating bansa. Ang bagyong si Ulysses kanina alas 10 ng umaga ay tinatayang nasa layong 635 ang layo east-northeast ng Surigao City or sa layong 605 kilometers silangan ng Borongan City, Eastern Samar. So mapapansin nga natin, offshore pa po ito, no? At yung mga kaulapan nito ay halos hindi pa nga umabot sa silangang bahagi ng ating bansa. Taglay ng bagyong si Ulysses ang lakas ng hangin, umabot na hanggang 55 kilometers per hour malapit sa gitna nito at yung pagbugso po ay posibleng umabot na hanggang 70 kilometers per hour. Inaasahan namin itong kikilos sa direksyong northwest sa bilis na 40 kilometers per hour. So sa mga kababayan natin, malamang dito sa may bandang dulong Hilagang Luzon or Northern Luzon area nagtataka kung bakit maulan po. Meron po tayong dyan tinatawag na tail end ng cold front. Kaya pinapayan po natin yung mga kababayan natin sa Northern Luzon area, particular na sa Ilocos Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, at maging sa Cagayan Valley, na maging alerto po sa kanilang mga areas nila, posibleng pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa. At magantabay din sa possible thunderstorm at heavy rainfall advisory na ipapalabas ng Northern Luzon Pag-asa Regional Services Division na matatagpuan po dito sa may bandang Tuwigaraw. Samantala, balikan naman po natin yung forecast track ng bagyong si Ulysses. So pinakikita dito yung naging pagkilos ni Ulysses simula po na nabuo siya into a tropical depression from a low pressure area inside the PAR. So may pumasok po na low pressure area at kagabi ay naging isang ganap na bagyo na ito or naging tropical depression. Kaya't kagabi po, alas 11 ng gabi ay nagpalabas po tayo ng kauna-unahang severe weather bulletin hinggil nga sa bagyong si Ulysses. At ito naman po, yung naging pagkilos ng bagyong si Ulysses during the last 12 hours. Kanina alas 8 ng umaga, ito yung current location. At inaasahan nga natin na within 24 hours, simula po ngayon alas 8 ng umaga or kanina alas 8 ng umaga hanggang bukas ng alas 8 ng umaga ay halos northwestward yung pagkilos nito. At mapapansin din natin na napakalayo pa ng sentro nito sa anumang bahagi ng ating bansa within a 24-hour period. Subalit simula po bukas ng alas 8 ng umaga hanggang sa Miyerkules ng umaga ay posibleng dahan-dahan na itong kumilos ng pakanluran. Mapapansin natin na yung magiging location niya sa Miyerkules ng umaga ay around 330 kilometers na lamang ang layo silangan ng Daet Camarines Norte. So posible po na simula ngayong gabi hanggang bukas ng umaga ay magpalabas na po tayo ng warning signal. Itaas natin sa ilang bahagi, lalong-lalo na sa silangang bahagi ng Kabikulan, ng Southern Luzon at ng Visayas. Pagdating naman sa pagitan ng Miyerkules ng umaga hanggang Huwebes ng umaga ay inaasahan na posibleng tumatawid na ito ng landmass ng Southern Luzon area. Base dito sa ating forecast track, makikita natin na possibly maglalandfall sa Bicol Region, Quezon area ang sentro ng bagyong si Ulysses sa pagitan po around the hapon ng Miyerkules hanggang sa gabi ng Miyerkules. Na maaari pa pong mabago yung estimate natin na time ng landfall habang lumalapit po yung bagyo. Pinakikita rin sa figure na ito yung tinatawag natin na area of probability. Ulitin po natin, ano nga ba ang ibig or pinaiwatig ng area probability? Yung pinakang linya sa gitna, yung black na linya sa gitna, yun yung forecast ng sentro ng bagyong si Ulysses. Subalit yung cone shape sa paligid nito ay nagpapakita ng mga posibleng iba pang lugar na pwedeng tamaan ng sentro ng bagyong si Ulysses during the forecast period. Ibig sabihin kung nabanggit natin kanina na ang sentro ng bagyo ay tatama sa Bicol region, possibly Wednesday afternoon onwards, mapapansin natin na ang area probability may nasasakupan ding bahagi ng Samar provinces, northern at eastern Samar. May nasasakupan din po dito sa may bandang northern part ng Quezon, ng Aurora at even yung southern portion ng Isabela. So hindi lamang po itong Bicol region at Quezon province ang maghanda sa possible landfall, kundi yung mga nabanggit pa natin ibang lalawigan na within the area of probability. At sa mga darating na araw, gaya nga binanggit natin kanina, posibleng simula mamayang gabi ay magtaas na tayo ng warning signal number 1 sa ilang bahagi po ng Kabikulan at ng Silangang Kabisayan. So habang lumalapit yung bagyo, asahan po natin na nandito pa lamang yung bagyo, bukas ng umaga, posibleng may warning signal number 1 na po tayo sa ilang bahagi ng Kabikulan at ng Kabisayan. At dahil nga inaasahan natin na lalakas pa yung bagyo at habang lumalapit, posibleng ma-upgrade yung warning signal at madagdagan pa yung mga lugar na may warning signals. So hindi lamang number 1 yung inaasahan natin na posibleng umabot po tayo ng hanggang number 2 or number 3, depende po sa magiging lakas ng bagyo. At ang lahat po ay pinapayuhan nga na patuloy na magantabay sa update ng Pag-asa hinggil sa bagyong si Ulysses. So sa pagitan naman ng Huwebes ng umaga hanggang Biyernes ng umaga, inaasahan na itong kikilos pa rin palabas ng landmass ng ating bansa, possibly bago makapananghali ng Huwebes. At sa Biyernes ng umaga ay halos nasa western boundary na ng ating area of responsibility. At pagdating naman sa pagitan ng Biyernes ng umaga hanggang Sabado ng umaga, posibleng nasa labas na po ito ng ating area of responsibility. So magiging madalas yung pag-update natin ng weather bulletin habang lumalapit ng kalupaan ng ating bansa ang bagyong si Ulysses. So ano nga ba inaasahan natin ngayong araw dahil sa pagmamonitor natin sa bagyong si Ulysses? Unang-una, bagamat wala pa itong direktang epekto sa anumang bahagi ng ating bansa, yung mga pag-ulan na dala nito at yung mga paminsan-minsang pagbugso ng hangin ay posibleng maranasan dito nga sa eastern portion or dito sa eastern Visayas at sa Bicol region simula po bukas. So yung pinaka-outermost rain bands at saka yung outermost wind ng bagyo, posibleng maranasan dito sa mga nabanggit nating lugar simula po bukas. And of course, habang lumalapit yung bagyo, asahan natin, mas dadami yung lugar na posibleng makaranas ng dahang-dahang pagsungit ng panahon sa mga darating na araw. Binanggit din natin kanina, yung tropical cyclone wind signal number 1 ay posible nating itaas sa ilang lugar sa Visayas at sa Bicol region simula po. Pinakamaaga na yung mamayang gabi hanggang bukas po ng umagang issuance natin ng weather bulletin. At binanggit ko rin na habang lumalapit yung bagyo, posibleng mas marami mga lalawigan ng magkaroon ng warning signal at magkaroon pa po tayo ng mas mataas na mga warning signal. So, dun sa forecast track ng bagyong si Ulysses, pinakita nga natin, no? Northwestward muna or pahilagang kanluran ang pagkilos niya simula ngayong araw hanggang bukas ng umaga. Subalit simula naman bukas ng umaga hanggang sa natitirang bahagi po ng forecast period natin.
And finally, in our news, hundreds of passengers lined up for virus tests conducted by health workers in protective suits before boarding the World Dream liner for a cruise to nowhere. Safety measures on board include isolation rooms for infected passengers, reduced capacity, and a machine that churns out virus test results in an hour. Take a look.
Yeah, because it's only for locals, you see, and especially our situation here is very safe, you see, and less cases of this virus, exactly. So we find that it's quite safe among ourselves.
It's good to finally be able to leave the country. So yeah, when they announced it, we jumped on it immediately. The fact that you carry your luggage and you bring your passport out is, I guess, it's just the mindset that you're going on a holiday.
Actually, I've been looking forward to it. My cruise was actually booked in July, and then it kept postponed until now. Then they're able to sail.
With kind of hospital-grade kind of chemicals that we use on board the ship, and all the safety measure, it is much safer to become on board than to be anywhere else.
The cruise to nowhere starting and ending at the same place with no stops has proved a hit, and mask-wearing passengers lined up for virus tests conducted by workers in protective suits before boarding the World Dream liner. The liner departs Friday evening into the Malacca Strait, a major shipping lane between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and then it will head into international waters before returning to the city-state Sunday. The ship also has an intensive care unit in case anyone does contract the virus. Despite not making any stops as the regular cruise would, there is plenty of entertainment on board. Tourism operators are rolling out new services as they struggle to survive. Airlines are operating flights to nowhere and travel-starved diners. Last month, 8 aboard 2 parked Singapore Airlines jets turned into pop-up restaurants. Thank you, Christelle, for joining me today and helping me out.
Thank you so much, Alma. It's always a pleasure to help. And that's the latest news around the ASEAN region. Thank you for watching. I am Crystal Mapa from ABC Thailand Bureau. We live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.